Robert De Niro has been recently speaking at the Marrakech Film Festival in Morocco. The veteran wrapped filming of his 9th collaboration with director Martin Scorsese earlier this year in the long-awaited gangster film The Irishman, in which he will play the lead. The movie is set to cover several decades in the life of mafia hitman Frank Sheeran, and Scorsese has utilized the talents of industrial light and magic to make the 75-year-old De Niro younger in certain scenes. The film has also raised eyebrows for being financed and distributed by the streaming company Netflix, as opposed to being made in the traditional way, and has a whopping budget of $140 million plus. On the making of the movie, De Niro explained that the movie has been in the works for a long time, and he and Scorsese didn't want to wait any longer and sought a way to make it in the way they wanted it to be made. He said, "There has been a lot of juggling regarding who would put money in and when it was coming. When Netflix came in, they just came in. They relieved a lot of anxiety and grief about doing it in a certain way, the way Marty wanted to do the film, and it's as it should be. So now it has to be presented in the traditional grand style. When Netflix switches to small screens, even if today they can be big, that's something to be worked out and debated. I don't know where that stands." Also starring in the movie, for the first time in a Scorsese picture, is screen legend Al Pacino. De Niro was asked whether he offered any tips, seeing as though he worked with both on numerous occasions, to which he replied, "No, they were great with each other." And the big-name cast doesn't end there, because Scorsese catalogue veterans Joe Pesci and Harvey Keitel are also in the film. It was put to De Niro whether this was an intentional move, in a kind of getting the old gang back together for one last hurrah attempt. Yes, it was. This particular project was the right thing to do, so that's why it took us a long time to get it going. It was a great experience. He then spoke a little on the de-aging CGI, saying, "The idea was to go back 4, maybe 5 decades, so Marty wanted the people at ILM to do this as best as it's been done to this point, making us look younger, and I was excited by that. It gave us the freedom to do scenes when we are younger and not worry about makeup so much. Sometimes we used movies when I'm in my 50s, in my earlier years, just without makeup, so I'm very curious to see how it looks." De Niro then talked about potential sequels to 2 films he starred in, the first of which he also directed. "I wanted to make a sequel to The Good Shepherd, but I don't know who would have been interested in seeing it. I had a great idea. I know it was a great idea. I try to get Eric Roth interested, and when I work on something, if people don't work out, then I lose interest. That's how I am. There are times when I'll say, we'll make it no matter what. We'll make an adjustment or move on to another writer. But I didn't do that with Eric. It just sort of stalled. Maybe it could be made if a producer believed in it and had the money, but it's one thing to say they have the money and to actually have it. A lot of people believe they can get the money with your name, but it doesn't always work like that." And the other movie sequel he discussed, surprisingly, was one for arguably his best Scorsese collaboration, the disturbing drama Taxi Driver. "For years I was thinking where Travis Bickle would be today, and we spoke to Marty about it, and Paul Strader came up with something, but it never worked out. I think there may be something interesting in what happened to him, but we couldn't find the right thing." Interestingly, in 2013, Strader spoke of De Niro's pitch to him of a Taxi Driver sequel, and he says he shot it down in seconds. He said, "De Niro suggested a Taxi Driver sequel to Marty and I about 15 years ago, and I told him it was the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I told him that character had died not more than 6 months after the movie was over. He was on a death trip and was going to succeed the next time." So some interesting words from De Niro. He reiterates what has been previously said about Netflix, in that they essentially saved the movie and allowed it to be made the way Scorsese wanted it to be made by providing the money and having a hands-off approach. Surely every filmmaker's dream. I enjoyed hearing his, albeit brief, words on the cast. I do want to know more about Scorsese and Pacino and how well they work together. Pacino recalled in a previous interview that filming The Irishman was like how they made movies in the old days, and they were given more time to hone and mould their characters. I did wonder also, what with the casting of De Niro, Pesci and Keitel, all Scorsese veterans, whether this was an intentional move to get all these former co-stars who often starred in mob movies in their heyday together in one film, or whether it just so happened that they cast whoever they wanted to cast for the roles and it ended up that way. Hearing De Niro's confirmation that the casting choices were done with the intent for this to be a big reunion gives The Irishman a lot more weight, in that it really is going to be the swan song of a whole generation of actors and the mob genre. I don't really remember much of The Good Shepherd. I remember liking it, but I was probably a bit too young at the time when I watched it to fully appreciate it. Like De Niro though, I do wonder who exactly would want to watch a sequel to it, especially all these years later. And Taxi Driver? I'm with Straight on that one. It doesn't need a sequel. It's a perfect movie and let's just leave it alone, shall we? Besides, not knowing how Travis ends up, or whether the ticking time bomb explodes once again, that's part of the movie's aura and the impression left with the thought-pondering ending. Scorsese has never made a sequel to one of his films, and I really don't think he needs to start now. Thanks for watching.